them something. They became warriors because God gave them a thick skin. We will not bow. And the king said, make the fire 7 times hotter. And to tell you they were not bluffing, they tied them. And they didn't just throw them. It was a ceremony. The king sat down with his officials. The whole city were watching how they will torment them with fire. But God showed up. See, God will show up for somebody. Your faith will not be in vain. I say God will show up for you. When the king threatens you, you may not see God. When they tied you, you may not see God. When they carried you, you may not see God. But when you enter the fire, Jesus will show up there. I say God will show up there. How about Daniel? Thrown into the den of the lion. Jesus said, blessed are ye when men persecute you because of your faith. When faith attracts persecution, celebrate. Did you not read about the apostles? Acts chapter 4. When they caught them, they flogged them, never preach in the name of this Christ. The Bible said they returned to their company and they celebrated that they too have been counted worthy to be persecuted for Jesus. Trials of faith. Faith sometimes will shut doors against you. Faith sometimes will throw you to the den of the lion. Faith sometimes will throw you into the furnace of fire. Faith does not only open doors, faith also shuts doors. There are places you go to because you call Jesus, they will relegate you to the back. But the excellency of faith is that everything you lost in time, God has a way through restoration at the right season to cover up all of those things. When you look at the life of Joseph, you thought those 13 years was a waste. From when he was sold by his brothers to his days in Potiphar's house, about 11 years, to the time in prison, about 2 years, you thought it was waste of time. But when God showed up, even Potiphar was no longer qualified to stand before Joseph. So the things you are losing, you are not losing them. God is aggregating them for you. At the right time, they will show up. This is why no matter the persecution, don't back down. Let people laugh. It's part of the story of faith. Number 4. Health challenges. And this one is very common with people who are in the power ministry. You know, when we went for Reinhard Bonke's last meeting in Lagos, he was operated of cancer not too long. Even when he was preaching, you could see the fire, but the body was weak. And I stood there as a man who didn't have understanding at the time, and I was wondering, I said, this man, he dematerialized cancer. Why will he be operated? That's where you hear, physician, heal thyself. People will even come up and say, all those things we told you were fake. Now that himself is sick, how come we can't see the healing power? It will look as if their narrative was right. You will endure it. People will mock you. I thought you say you deliver people. How come your own son is demonized? And many times, for a season, nothing will happen. It's faith. It's part of scripture. Look at the Bible. Job chapter 1. The Bible began this scripture by telling us the credentials of Job. Job 1 verse 1. There was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job. That man was perfect and upright, and one that feared God and eschewed evil. This was a man who walked with God. But there was a challenge, and Job was not even aware. Satan went to God Is it not because you blessed him that is worshiping you? If you didn't bless him, will he worship you? God said this man loved me more than things. Satan says it's not true. He said, okay, go and try it. He went. One day, all of his wealth and children disappeared. You will be there asking, all of them, where say, now they pray. Why didn't you see when Satan wanted to attack your son? If you have not heard such things, you don't know faith. If things happen to you and everybody comes to sympathize with you, you are not a man of faith. That means you have not said some rugged things before. They will show. I thought you say you see. How come attack came? 7 of your children, you didn't see one. You will keep quiet and learn humility in faith. As if that was not enough, Satan still came and afflicted the man. Are you not the one who was saying here that Christ in you is the hope of glory? Are you all the one shouting and singing, if that same spirit that raised up Jesus from the dead lives in us, he quickens our mortal body? Are you not the one saying, I cannot be sick? Oh God, how come you are lying down? You will turn to God and bite your finger. But you see, it will be too late to doubt God. And because you can't doubt God, it becomes like a prison. You can't deny your faith, and you can't deny the fact that you are where you shouldn't be. And people are asking. That's where Job found himself. It's called trial of faith. Your health will be attacked. Your loved ones will be attacked. Look at Paul, mighty apostle. The Bible says Paul was in Lystra. He was preaching. A man who was impotent from birth was watching. And Paul perceived that he had faith. And Paul told him, stand up. And a crippled man stood up and started walking. But Timothy, that was Paul's disciple, was sick. Guess what Paul said? Don't drink only water. Drink wine for what? Your often infirmities. Imagine if you saw Paul in the hospital with Timothy. You will carry phone and record. Come and see this fake apostle. I told you, all those miracles on the crusade are fake. See the real sickness, he can't do anything. Or God don't come hospital. Trials. 1 Timothy 5, 22 and 23. You know, I wondered how Paul felt when he wrote this to Timothy. Meanwhile, Paul was still talking to him about laying on of hands. He said, lay hands suddenly on no man. That means even Timothy was walking in miracles. So Paul was telling him, don't be carried away and start laying hands on everybody. Be wise, so that you don't partake of people's infirmity. Yet the guy was sick. So you will lay hands on somebody, he's shouting, I am healed. You turn, you are vomiting. That's faith. Paul, God mighty apostle, healed the sick. But his own disciple, sick. He said, drink no longer water, but use little wine for thy stomach's sake and for thy often infirmities. So Timothy was sick. Paul was helpless many times. They had to look for a doctor to advise them. Recently, somebody said, these pastors have doctors. I said, you don't know faith. If you know the journey of faith, you will know. There's no law that says you shouldn't have doctors. But that doctors are present does not mean you should stop trusting God. Because of thy often infirmities. Those of you who follow the moves of God, you must have read across many generations some of the mighty workers of miracles. Either their children or their wives or themselves were sick. And they will go to massive crusades. Massive things will happen. But they will come back and nurse their sick children. I read the book of our dear mother in the faith, Mrs. Faith Oyedepo. How she was struck on the altar. Went to preach with the husband somewhere. God's servant finished preaching. For her to come take offering, she collected the mic and couldn't speak. And after a few seconds, God's servant discerned that something was wrong, rushed there and grabbed her from the altar. She was bedridden for more than 9 months. You will say, I thought this man says a man of faith. That's why it's happening. It's called trials of faith.
When you hold my hands,